You have 30 days to get out. I already called the police, Clara said, her voice calm as glass. If you're still here tomorrow, they'll remove you. The words didn't just land, they exploded inside my chest. At 67 years old, standing in the house where I had buried my husband, where I had raised my only son, I was being threatened like a trespasser. And the worst part, she wasn't bluffing. The eviction notice trembled in my hand. My name was printed clearly. Coldly, like I was nothing more than an inconvenience to be erased. 30 days. 30 days to disappear from a life I had built over for decades. I slowly looked up at her. Clara stood near the dining table, perfectly composed. Her hair was tied back neatly, her posture straight, her face untouched by emotion. Not grief, not guilt, just control. You're serious, I said quietly. I've never been more serious, she replied. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not in this house. Not from her. 3 years earlier, I had stood in this very room holding my son. Daniel's hand as the machines around him went silent. He was only 42. Too young. Far too young. Heart attack, they said. Sudden, unavoidable. But as I looked at Clara now, something cold crept into my chest. Because she didn't look like a widow. She looked like someone who had been waiting. I don't understand, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Daniel would never have allowed this. Clara let out a small, humorless laugh. You really didn't know, did you? My stomach tightened. Know what? She walked forward slowly, heels clicking against the hardwood like a countdown. That Daniel transferred everything to me before he died, she said. The house. The accounts. All of it? No, I whispered immediately. That's not true. It is, she said, tapping the folder. Signed, notarized, legal. My hands went cold. I remembered Daniel in those final weeks. Pale, barely able to sit up without help. Papers had come and gone, yes. But I had trusted Clara. I had trusted her to take care of him. To take care of us. You're lying, I said, but even to my own ears, it sounded fragile. Clara leaned in slightly. I don't need to lie anymore. That sentence, it didn't just scare me. It revealed something. Something I hadn't allowed myself to see before. I turned away from her, my eyes scanning the room, the old clock on the wall. The faded family photos. Daniel's childhood drawings still tucked into a frame near the hallway. Memories layered into every corner. You can't just throw me out, I said, gripping the back of a chair for support. This is my home. Was, Clara corrected sharply. Silence filled the space between us. Then she added, almost casually, I've already scheduled a realtor for next week. My head snapped toward her. You're selling it? Of course I am, she said. Do you know how much this property is worth now? It's wasted sitting like this. Wasted. The word burned. This is not just property, I said, my voice rising. This is where your husband grew up. This is where he... Daniel is gone, she cut in coldly. And I'm the one who's still here. That did it. Something inside me cracked, and then hardened. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't grieving Daniel. She had already moved on. Maybe She had moved on long before he died. I looked down again at the eviction notice. 30 days. A deadline. A threat. A mistake. Slowly, very slowly, I placed the paper back on the table. Then I did something Clara clearly wasn't expecting. I smiled. Not out of kindness, but out of certainty. You seem softly. Clara frowned slightly. I have every reason to be. Do you? I asked. Her eyes narrowed. What is that supposed to mean? I stepped closer, my movements calm now. Deliberate. Because the fear that had filled my chest just minutes ago was gone, replaced by something else, something sharper. You said Daniel transferred everything to you, I continued. The house included. Yes, she said, her tone impatient. I've made that very clear. I nodded slowly. I'm sure you believe that. I don't believe it, she snapped. I have proof. I tilted my head slightly. And you never thought to question it. Question what? She asked. I let the silence stretch. Watched the faintest flicker of uncertainty begin to creep into her expression. Then I spoke. Carefully. Precisely. Whether Daniel actually owned this house to begin with. The air shifted. Clara blinked. Once. But it was enough. What are you talking about? She sighed. I took another step forward. Close enough now that she couldn't ignore the calm in my voice. The documents you have, I said. They only matter if Daniel had legal ownership. Her jaw tightened. He did. I smiled again. Jimmy. Wider. No, I said quietly. He didn't. The silence that followed was different. Heavier. More dangerous. Clara stared at me now. Really stared. Like she was trying to peel back something she had never bothered to look at before. That's not possible, she said slowly. Isn't it? I replied. I reached for the edge of the table, steady but unshaken. You see, Clara, I continued. My voice, almost gentle now, there's something you never asked Daniel. She said nothing. Didn't move. Didn't blink. And for the first time since this conversation began, she looked unsure. I leaned in slightly and delivered the truth she was never prepared for. This house, I said, was never his to give you. A pause. A breath. A moment where everything changed. Because legally, I let the words hang, then dropped them like a blade. It's mine. Clara's face drained of color. No, she whispered. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. Because what she had just done, trying to throw me out, threatening me, racing me, that wasn't just cruel. It was a mistake she was going to regret. Deeply, I straightened up, my eyes locked onto hers. You gave me 30 days, I said calmly. Then I smiled. Cold, controlled, unshakable. I won't need that long. Clara didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. A single word. She just stood there, staring at me as if I had suddenly become someone else, someone dangerous. Someone she had completely underestimated. That's not possible, she finally said, but her voice had changed. The confidence was gone. Now there was something underneath it. Fear. I folded my hands calmly in front of me. You keep saying that. I saw the documents, she snapped, regaining a bit of her sharpness. Daniel signed everything over to me. Everything. Did you? I asked quietly. Her jaw tightened. What is that supposed to mean? It means, I said, stepping past her and pulling out a chair. You saw what you wanted to see. I sat down slowly, deliberately taking back space she had already claimed. Clara didn't move. Sit, I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. I'm not. Sit, I repeated, this time firmer. Something in my tone made her hesitate. Then, almost reluctantly, she sat down. Guide, you said Daniel transferred the house to you. I began. Tell me something. Did you ever check the original deed? Her eyes flickered. Just for a second. That's handled in the transfer process, she replied quickly. The lawyer took care of it. Ah, I said softly. The lawyer. A silence stretched between us. Then I asked, the question that changed everything. Which lawyer? Clara blinked. What? Name, I said. Which lawyer handled the transfer? She hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. It was Daniel's contact, she said finally. I don't remember the name. I smiled slightly. Of course you don't. Her expression hardened. Are you implying something? I'm not implying, I said calmly. I'm observing. I leaned forward just a little. Because if a legitimate property transfer had taken place, you'd know exactly who handled it. Clara opened her mouth, then stopped. Because now she was thinking. And that was exactly where I wanted her. You're trying to confuse things, she said, but her voice lacked strength now. No, I replied. I'm trying to clarify them. I reached into the drawer beside the table. Her eyes widened immediately. What are you doing? She asked. Something I should have done the moment you walked in with that folder, I said. Pardon, warning envelope. Yellowed slightly with age, but intact, carefully preserved. Clara watched every movement, now her body tense. Her eyes locked on the envelope like it might explode. What is that? She asked. I placed it gently on the table between us. This, I said, is the original deed to the house. The air shifted again. Sharply. Clara didn't touch it. Didn't even breathe. Open it, I said. She didn't move. I said open it, slowly, cautiously. She reached forward and slid the document out. Her eyes scanned the page not once, twice, then a third time, and that's when I saw it. The moment it hit her, her fingers tightened around the paper. That's not, she stammered. Not what you expected. I asked. No, she whispered. This is. I know what it says, I replied. She looked up at me, her face pale now. It says the property is in your name. Not at once. Only my name. No, she said quickly, shaking her head. That doesn't make sense. Daniel lived here. He owned this house. Did he? I asked. Yes, she snapped. Of course he did. I leaned back in my chair. Then why isn't his name on the deed? Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Clara looked back down at the paper, scanning it again as if the truth might rearrange itself if she stared hard enough. But it didn't. Because it couldn't. I bought this house, I said quietly, 32 years ago, after my husband died. Clara said nothing. I paid every mortgage installment, every tax, every repair. Her lips parted slightly. Daniel lived here, I continued. But legally, it was never his. That's impossible, she whispered. No, I said. It's just inconvenient for you. She suddenly slammed the paper down on the table. This doesn't change anything, she said, her voice rising again, but now it sounded desperate. Daniel still signed everything over to me. His assets, his rights, everything. I tilted my head slightly. Yes, I said. His assets. She froze, and there it was. The second realization. Slower. More painful. You can't transfer what you don't own, Clara. Her breathing became uneven. But he said. She started, then stopped. I watched her closely now, because something new had entered the room. Doubt, not about me, but about Daniel. What exactly did he say? I asked softly. She didn't answer. Clara, I pressed, what did Daniel tell you? Her eyes flicked up to mine, and for the first time, there was fear in them that had nothing to do with me. He told me everything would be mine, she whispered. I nodded slowly. I'm sure he did. The silence that followed wasn't just tense, was loaded. Because now the question wasn't just about the house. It was about Daniel. His words, his intentions, his truth. Clara stood up abruptly, pacing a few steps away. No, she muttered. No, this isn't right. There has to be something else. Another document. Another clause. There isn't, I said calmly. You don't know that. I do, I replied. She turned toward me, her eyes sharp again but unstable now. Then explain something to me, she demanded. I waited. If this house was always yours, she said slowly, why didn't Daniel ever tell me that? And there it was. The question that cracked everything open. I held her gaze, unflinching. Maybe, I said quietly, you should be asking a different question. Her brows furrowed. What question? I leaned forward slightly, lowered my voice, and delivered the first real shock. Why was he so desperate for you to believe it was yours? Clara's face went completely still, no anger, no arrogance, just stillness. Because somewhere deep inside her, something had just started to break. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Because the truth about the house was only the beginning. Clara didn't leave the house that day. That, more than anything, told me she was shaken. Because the Clara I had known for 15 years, she would have stormed out, slammed the door, and come back with a lawyer within the hour. But this Chimmy, she stayed. And that meant one thing. She was no longer sure of the ground beneath her feet. I found her an hour later in the living room, sitting on the couch where Daniel used to fall asleep, watching late-night television. The folder was open in her lap, papers scattered, her phone beside her. She had been making calls. I could tell. How many? I asked calmly. She flinched slightly, not expecting my voice. What? How many lawyers did you call? I repeated. She stared at me for a moment, then looked away. 3, she said. Nadad. And her lips pressed into a thin line. They all said the same thing. I walked in slowly, stopping just across from her. Which is? She swallowed. If the deed is in your name, she said quietly, then Daniel couldn't legally transfer ownership. Silence settled between us. Thick, heavy. Finau. Clara let out a shaky breath and leaned back into the couch, staring at the ceiling. This doesn't make sense, she whispered. Why would he lie to me? There it was again. Not anger, not accusation, but confusion, and something else beginning to creep in. Doubt, not about, bound. That depends, I said slowly. She turned her head toward me. On what? On what else he didn't tell you. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What are you saying? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I walked over to the old bookshelf when Daniel built himself when he was 19, crooked shelves, uneven, but he had been so proud of it. My fingers brushed along the wood. Memories. So many memories. But I wasn't here for that. I reached behind a row of old photo albums and pulled out something Clara had never seen before. A small black notebook. Worn. Private. Forgotten. Or perhaps hidden. What is that? She asked, sitting up straighter. I turned back to her, holding it carefully. This, I said, is something Daniel never intended for you to find. Her eyes locked onto it immediately. What do you mean? I stepped closer, then placed it gently on the coffee table between us. He kept this during the last year of his life, I said. Clara's breathing slowed. He never mentioned it, she whispered. I know, I replied. She hesitated, then slowly reached forward and opened the notebook. The pages were filled with Daniel's handwriting. Messy, rushed, uneven in places. Not the writing of a healthy man, but the writing of someone under pressure. At first, Clara just skimmed. Then she stopped, her eyes fixed on a single line. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the page. There, I asked quietly. She didn't answer. Didn't move, just kept staring. Clara, I said, firmer now. She finally looked up at me, and I saw it. The shift, the beginning of fear. This doesn't make sense, she said. What did you read? Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. He wrote. I don't know how much longer I can keep this from her. The room went still. I nodded slowly. Yes, I said. He wrote that. Clara shook her head. No, that doesn't mean anything. It could be about anything. Turn the page, I said. She hesitated. Deed. Her eyes moved quickly now, scanning the next entry. Then the next. The next, with each line you have changed. Color draining. Confidence collapsing. Reality shifting. What is this? She asked, her voice unsteady. It's the truth, I said. No, she whispered. No, this is out of context. This isn't. Read it out loud, I said. She froze. I'm not. Read it, I repeated. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked back down at the page. Then, reluctantly, she began. She keeps asking about the house. I told her it is taken care of. I too. If she finds out the truth now, everything will fall apart. Her voice cracked. She stopped reading. Keep going, I said quietly. I don't want to, she whispered. That's not your choice anymore. She swallowed hard, then continued. I never transferred the house. I couldn't. It was never mine. But she believes it is. And maybe that's better. Maybe it keeps things stable. For now. The words hung in the air. Sharp. Unforgiving. Irreversible. Clara's hand dropped from the notebook. Slowly. Like it had lost all strength. No, she said under her breath. I watched her carefully. Because now, we were no longer talking about property. We were talking about betrayal. He lied to you, I said plainly. Her head snapped up. No, she said quickly. No, Daniel wouldn't lie to me like that. He already did, I replied. She shook her head again, more forcefully this time. There has to be a reason, she insisted. There has to be something else, something you're not telling me. I held her gaze. Cold, steady. There is. She froze. Noun. For the first time since this began, I saw something I had been waiting for. Fear. How, fear. What? She asked. My voice dropped. Low. Controlled. Dangerous. The house, I said, is the least important lie he told you. Clara's breathing stopped. Just for a second. But it was enough. Then what's the truth? She whispered. I didn't answer immediately. Because the next part would break something inside her. Completely. I leaned in slightly and said the one thing she was not ready to hear. The truth, I said, is that Daniel wasn't protecting you. A pause. A breath. A fracture forming beneath everything she believed. He was protecting himself. Clara stared at me, frozen, because somewhere deep down, she already knew. This wasn't over. Not even close. Clara didn't cry. Not yet. That's what made it more unsettling. She just sat there, staring at the notebook, like it might suddenly rewrite itself and undo everything she had just read. But it didn't. Because the truth doesn't correct itself to make you comfortable. You're lying, she said finally, but her voice had lost its edge. It sounded thin, fragile. I didn't react. If I were lying, I said calmly, I wouldn't have shown you that. Her fingers slowly curled over the notebook again, as if she didn't trust herself to let it. He was sick, she said, almost to herself. He was under pressure. People say things when they're dying that don't always. Clara. She stopped. I stepped closer. Look at me. She did. Reluctantly. Daniel didn't write that in confusion, I said. He wrote it because he was running out of time. Her lips parted slightly. And when people run out of time, I continued, they stop lying to themselves. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. She shook her head again, slower this time. No, there's something missing, she said. There has to be. Why would he lie about the house? What was the point? I studied her for a moment. Then I asked the question she wasn't ready for. How much money did Daniel have? Her brow furrowed. What? How much, I repeated, did he have? She hesitated, then answered carefully. Enough, she said. He had investments, savings, life insurance. We were stable. Were you? I asked. Her eyes narrowed. Yes. Not at once. Then you won't mind checking. She frowned. Checking what? I didn't answer. Instead, I turned and walked toward the hallway. Bring your phone, I said. A moment passed. Then I heard her stand, hesitate, and follow. We entered Daniel's old study, a room neither of us had touched much since he died. His desk was still there, his chair, his computer powered off, untouched. A frozen version of a life that had quietly ended. Clara stepped in slowly, as if crossing into something sacred or dangerous. Why are we here? She asked. Because, I said, gesturing toward the desk. This is where the truth starts getting harder to ignore. She swallowed, then pulled out her phone. What do you want me to check? His accounts, I said. She stiffened. I've already handled those. Then it'll be easy, I replied. Logging. She hesitated. And that hesitation told me something new. Something important. You do have access, don't you? I asked quietly. Her eyes flicked up to mine. Of course I do. But there it was again. That kraki. Widening. She turned away slightly and began typing. Her fingers moved quickly, at first confident, then slower. Then, it's you. What he said. I asked. Nothing, she said quickly. It's just taking a second. I waited. Didn't move. Didn't speak. A few seconds later, her posture changed. Subtly, but unmistakably. Her shoulders tensed. Her breathing shifted. Clara, I said softly. She didn't respond. Clara. What? She snapped, suddenly, but her voice wasn't angry. It was panicked. What are you seeing? I asked. She stared at her phone like it had betrayed her. This isn't right, she whispered. Show me. No, she said immediately. Show me. Reluctantly, slowly. She turned the screen toward me. And there it was. Da balance. Or rather, the lack of it. That's not possible, she said quickly. There were 6 figures in this account. I saw it. I know I saw it. I didn't react. How much is there now? I asked. Her voice dropped. Almost nothing. The room went quiet. But not empty. Because now, something else had entered. Realization. That's just one account, she said quickly. There are others. Check them, I said. She did. One by one. Each login slower than the last. Each result hitting harder. Nothing. Or close to it. No, she whispered. No, this doesn't make sense. Where did it go? Where did all of it go? I watched her carefully now, because this was the moment the ground disappeared beneath her. You tell me, I said quietly. Her head snapped toward me. You knew about this? I suspected, I replied. Suspected what? She demanded. I took a slow breath, then sighed it. He wasn't protecting you, I reminded her. He was hiding something. Her face tightened. What kind of something drains every account he had? She asked, her voice shaking now. I held her gaze. Steady, unblinking. The kind, I said, that someone doesn't want traced. Silence. Thick. Terrifying. Clara backed up slightly, her hand gripping the edge of the desk for support. No, she whispered. Daniel wouldn't. He wouldn't just move everything. Not without telling me. He didn't tell you a lot of things, I said. Her breathing became uneven, her thoughts racing faster than she could control. Where is it? She asked suddenly. Where did the money go? I didn't answer right away, because the truth was worse than she imagined. Instead, I walked past her, opened the top drawer of Daniel's desk, and pulled out something small, simple, but devastating. A bank statement, printed, folded, hidden. What is that? She asked, her voice barely holding together. I unfolded it slowly, then placed it in her hands. Read the date, I said. She looked down. Her eyes scanned the page, then froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. That's... She whispered. Yes, I said quietly. 3 days before he died. Her hands began to shake. Because now, she wasn't just looking at missing money. She was looking at timing, intent, decision. Look at the transaction, I said. She did. And that's when it hit her. Fully. Completely. A transfer. She whispered. Nadad. Her eyes moved slowly across the page. Reading. Processing. Breaking. All of it. Sighed. Yes. She looked up at me. Anne. There was no denial left. Only fear. Where did he send it? She asked. I held her gaze and said the words that would change everything again. Not where, Clara. A pause. A breath. A final piece falling into place. This whom? Her face went pale, because deep down, she already knew. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about someone else. Someone hidden. Someone Daniel trusted. More than her. Clara didn't move. Not actually first. She just stared at the bank statement like it might burn her if she touched it for too long. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Because sometimes the truth doesn't arrive like a scream. Sometimes it arrives like silence. Say it, I told her quietly. She blinked. What? The name, I said. Read it out loud. Her fingers tightened around the paper. I don't. Read it. Her breathing became shallow, unsteady, slowly, reluctantly. Her eyes dropped back to the line. And then she said it. Evelyn Carter. The room went completely still. Clara looked up at me, confusion written all over her face. "Who is that?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately. I just watched her. Because this was the moment where everything she thought she knew about her marriage began to collapse. "I've never heard that name before," she said quickly. "That has to be a mistake. It has to be some kind of—" "It's not a mistake," I said. Her voice rose slightly. "Then who is she?" I took a slow breath. Because the answer wasn't simple, and it wasn't kind. "That," I said, "is the right question." Clara shook her head, pacing now, her grip still tight around the paper. No, this doesn't make sense. Daniel didn't know anyone named Evelyn Carter. I would have known. Would you? I asked quietly. She stopped, turned toward me. Yes, she said firmly. I was his wife. I held her gaze. Yeah, I said, you do know Yid in this house. That landed hard. She looked away first, her confidence cracking further. This is different, she muttered. This is money. This is a person. You can't just hide something like that. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I walked slowly toward the window, looking out at the front yard Daniel used to mow every Sunday morning. Routine, order, predictability. That's what he showed the world. But that's not what he was hiding. People hide entire lives, Clara, I said softly. You'd be surprised what they can keep buried. She turned back toward me, her face tight with tension. Then tell me, she demanded. Who is she? I paused, because what I was about to say would change how she saw everything. Evelyn Carter said slowly, is someone Daniel met about a year before he died. Clara froze. What? I turned to face her again. He didn't tell you, I continued. But I saw the signs. What signs? She asked quickly. The late nights, the sudden phone calls, the way he started locking his study door. Her expression darkened. No, she said immediately. No, that's not he was sick. He was under stress. That doesn't mean. It means exactly what you think it means, I said. Silence, heavy, painful. Clara shook her head again, but slower this time. Like she was trying to hold onto something already slipping away. You're saying, she whispered, you're saying he was seeing someone else. I didn't soften it. Yes. The word hung in the air like a blade. No, she said again, but this time it sounded hollow. No, Daniel wouldn't do that. Not to me. I didn't argue. Didn't need to, because the evidence was already in her hands. Then why did he send her everything? I asked quietly. Clara didn't answer. Because she couldn't. Her eyes dropped back to the statement. To the name, to the truth, she couldn't unsee. This doesn't make sense, she whispered, if he was having an affair. Why would he give her all the money? Why not just leave? Why not tell me? That question was the key. I walked closer again. Slowly, carefully, because, I said, it wasn't just an affair. Clara looked up, fear rising again. What do you mean? I held her gaze, and then I said the one thing she was not ready for. He was afraid of her, the color drained from her face. That's ridiculous, she said quickly. Why would he be afraid of someone he was choosing to be with? I didn't answer right away because this part still haunted me. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out something small, something Clara had never seen. A photograph. I handed it to her. "What is this?" she asked. "Look," she did. And the moment her eyes focused on the image, everything changed again. It was Daniel, standing outside a building. But he wasn't alone. Next to him was a woman, tall, sharp-featured, dark eyes, and a smile that didn't reach them. Clara's hand trembled. "Is that?" she whispered. "Yes," I said. "That's Evelyn Carter." Clara stared at the photo. Her breathing uneven now. "She doesn't look." She started. "Like what?" I asked. She hesitated, then said it, "Like someone he would love." I nodded slowly. "Exactly." Silence. "Then why?" She asked again, her voice barely holding together. "Why would he be with her?" I stepped closer, lowered my voice. "Because," I said, "sometimes people don't choose who they're with." Clara's eyes widened. And then I delivered the line that shattered everything. She thought she understood. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "they're trapped." The room went cold, because now, this wasn't just betrayal. It was something else, something darker, something dangerous. Clara didn't speak for a long time. She just stared at the photograph at Daniel standing beside a woman who looked like she didn't belong in his life, and yet, somehow, had taken control of it. Her fingers trembled slightly as she traced the edge of the image. "She doesn't look afraid," Clara whispered. I said nothing. "He looks afraid," she added, her voice tightening. That was the first correct thing she had said since this began. Clara looked up at me slowly. "Where did you get this?" "I took it," I replied. Her eyes widened. "You were following him." "No," I said calmly. "I was worried about him." I walked over to the chair and sat down again, my gaze steady. "He had started changing," I continued. "About a year before he died. Subtle at first, then not so subtle." Clara swallowed. "What kind of changes?" I exhaled slowly, remembering. "He became restless, distracted, always checking his phone, always locking doors." Her face tightened. "You're describing someone having an affair." "I'm describing someone under pressure," I corrected. She hesitated, then asked the question that mattered. "What kind of pressure?" I held her gaze. "The kind that makes a man transfer every dollar he has." 3 days before he dies. Silence. Again. But this chimney affair. Heavier. Closer. Clara stood up abruptly. "I need to know who she is," she said. "Nadad." "I was waiting for you to say that." She grabbed her phone again, moving quickly now urgency, replacing denial. "Evelyn Carter," she muttered. "There has to be something. Social media, records, anything." "Be careful," I said quietly. She stopped mid-step. "What?" "That's not a name you want to search lightly," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "Why not?" I didn't answer immediately. Because the truth would pull her in deeper than she was ready for. "Instead," I said, "search it." She did. Her fingers moved fast, Tapping, scrolling, opening results. At first, nothing. Basic profiles. Empty pages. A few irrelevant hits. See, she said quickly. There's nothing here. This is pointless. Keep going, I said. She exhaled sharply but continued. Scrolling. Scrolling. Then, she stopped. Her posture stiffened. Her eyes locked onto the screen. And just like before. That shift. What is it? I asked quietly. She didn't respond. Clara. She slowly turned the phone toward me. I think I found something. I looked. And there it was. Not a profile. Not a photo gallery. But a record. Old. Buried. But how? A news article. Clara's voice trembled slightly as she read the headline aloud. Local financial consultant questioned in. Connection with multiple fraud. Investigations. She swallowed hard. That's her name, she said. Evelyn Carter. I nodded slowly. Keep reading. Her eyes scanned the article quickly now. Then slower. Then stopped. She was never charged, Clara said. No, I replied. But, Clara continued, her voice tightening. They suspected her of manipulating clients, gaining access to their finances, moving money through untraceable accounts. Her voice broke. She targeted older individuals, Clara whispered. The room went silent, because now the pieces were starting to fit. Daniel wasn't old, Clara said quickly, almost defensively. He was in his 40s. That doesn't fit. No, I agreed. It doesn't. She looked at me, confused, afraid. Then why him? She asked. I held her gaze. And asked? The question she hadn't considered. Who said he was the target? Clara froze. What do you mean? She whispered. I leaned forward slightly. What if, I said, Daniel wasn't the one she was after? The color drained from her face. No, she said immediately. No, that doesn't make sense. I didn't even know her. I've never met her. Are you sure? I asked quietly. She hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. Clara, I said, my voice sharper now. Think carefully. Her breathing became uneven. I would remember, she said. Someone like that I would remember. Would you? I pressed. She didn't answer. Because now, she wasn't sure. Her mind was racing, searching through memories. Moments, faces she might have overlooked. I don't know, she admitted finally. Nada. Because now we were getting closer. But even if that's true, she said quickly, trying to regain control, it doesn't prove anything. It doesn't explain the money. It doesn't explain why Daniel would send everything to her. I stood up slowly, walked toward the study door, then stopped. It does, I said. She turned toward me. How? She demanded. I looked back at her. And this, Jimmy. There was no softness left in my voice. Because he wasn't sending it to her willingly. Clara's eyes widened. You're saying she forced him? She asked. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. A pause. a breath, a darker truth forming. I'm saying. I stepped fully into the doorway. He didn't think he had a choice. The silence that followed wasn't just heavy. It was terrifying. Because now, this wasn't about betrayal, or secrets, or lies. It was about control, fear, and something far more dangerous than either of them had imagined. Clara stood frozen in the middle of the room, her phone still in her hand, her world unraveling piece by piece. Then what are we dealing with? She whispered. I held her gaze, unflinching, and gave her the answer that would change everything again. Someone, I said quietly, who doesn't let people walk away. Clara stopped breathing, just for a moment, because deep down, she understood. If Daniel had been trapped, and the money was gone, then whatever had happened to him might not have been an accident. Clara didn't say a word. Not after that. Not after the realization settled in that whatever Daniel had been involved in, it hadn't ended with his death. Because now, it felt like it had just begun. The house was too quiet again. But this time, it wasn't peaceful. It was wrong. Say something, Clara whispered. I didn't respond immediately. I was listening. To what? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. I raised a hand. At first, she looked confused, then irritated. Then, she heard it, a sound. Faint, but unmistakable. Gravel shifting. Outside, Clara's head snapped toward the window. You heard that, right? She whispered. I nodded slowly. Yes. Her breathing quickened. Who would be out there? I didn't answer, because I already knew. Or actually, I had a very strong suspicion. Stay here, I said quietly. What? No, are you serious? She said, grabbing my arm. You think I'm just going to stand here while someone is? Stay here, I repeated, firmer this time. Something in my tone stopped her. I moved slowly toward the front hallway, every step deliberate. Careful. The house felt different now, like it was no longer ours, like something had entered it. Without permission, I reached the front door, paused, then looked through the side window. At you first. Nothing. Just the front yard. The old oak tree. The empty driveway. Then, movement. A shadow. Near the gate. I narrowed my eyes, trying to focus, trying to make out a shape. And then I saw it. A car, parked just beyond the edge of the property. Black, engine running. My stomach tightened. Margaret. Clara's voice came from behind me, barely above a whisper. Don't come closer, I said without turning. Who is it? She asked. I didn't answer right away, because the moment I stepped slightly to the side, the driver's seat came into view, and I saw her, even from a distance. I knew. Sharp features, still posture, watching. Evelyn Carter. She's here, I said quietly. Clara froze behind me. What? She whispered. I stepped back from the window slowly. She's been watching the house. No, Clara said immediately. No, That's not possible. How would she even know? The money, I said. Clara stopped. She knows we're asking questions. I continued. Which means... I let the sentence hang. Which means what? Clara asked, her voice tightening. I turned to face her fully. She's not done. Clara's face went pale. Another sound. This time louder. Closer. A car door shutting. Clara flinched. She's getting out, she whispered. Nadad. Lock the back door, I said immediately. What? She asked. Now. She didn't argue this time. She rose then. I turned back toward the front. Listening. Every sound amplified now. Every second stretched. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Approaching the house. Not hurried. Not nervous. Confident. A knock. Chimis. Firm. Controlled. Clara returned, breathless. It's locked, she said. The knock came again. Louder this time. Margaret, Clara whispered. What do we do? I didn't answer right away. Because this was the moment everything collided. Lies. Dani. Danielle. And her. Another knock. Then, a voice. Calm. Cold. Unfamiliar. But unmistakably controlled. I know you're inside. Clara's hand gripped my arm tightly. Oh my God, she whispered. That's her. I stepped toward the door slowly. Margaret, don't, Clara started. It's already too late for that, I said quietly. I reached for the handle. Paused. Then opened the door. Evelyn Carter stood there. Exactly as I remembered. Composed. Sharp. And smiling just enough to feel wrong. Her eyes moved from me. To Clara. And back again. Well, she said smoothly, this is unexpected. No fear. Hesitation. Just control. You shouldn't be here, I said. She tilted her head slightly. And yet, she replied, here I am. Clara stepped forward suddenly. Where is the money? She demanded, her voice shaking but loud. Evelyn looked at her, really looked at her, and then smiled. Oh, she said softly. So he never told you. Clara froze. Told me what? She asked. Evelyn's eyes flicked toward me briefly. Then back to Clara. That you were part of the arrangement. The words hit like a gunshot. What? Clara whispered. I felt her grip on my arm loosen, then disappear completely. No, Clara said immediately. No, that's not true. I don't even know you. Evelyn stepped closer. Uninvited. Umbocereggi. Not personally, she said. A pause. A breath. A devastating calm. But your name, she continued, was always part of the plan. Clara's face drained of all color. What plan? She asked, her voice barely holding together. Evelyn smiled again. But this chimney, there was something darker behind it. The one your husband died, trying to fix. Silence. Total. Absolute. Because now, this wasn't just about Daniel. It was about Clara, and whatever she had been dragged into, without even knowing it. Clara staggered back like she had been physically struck. No, she whispered. No, that's not true. I don't even know you. Evelyn didn't argue. Didn't raise her voice. She simply stepped inside the house. Like she belonged there. Like she always had. You don't know me, Evelyn said calmly. But your husband knew exactly who I was. Clara shook her head, her breathing uneven now. You're lying, she said. This is some kind of scam. You took the money, and now you're trying to. I didn't take anything, Evelyn interrupted softly. That stopped her. Clara blinked. What? Evelyn's eyes flicked toward me briefly. Then back to her. He gave it to me, she said. Silence. No, Clara said again, but there was nothing left behind the word now. No, you forced him. You manipulated him. That's what you do. There's an article. I saw it. Evelyn smiled faintly. You saw what they suspected, she said. Not what they could prove. Clara's hands clenched at her sides. Then prove this, she snapped. Why would he give you everything? Why would he risk everything for you? Evelyn's expression didn't change, but her answer did. Because, she said, he was trying to protect you. The room went still. Clara frus. I didn't move either, because even I hadn't expected that. Protect me, Clara whispered. Evelyn nodded once. From what? Clara asked. Evelyn took a slow step closer. And for the first time, her voice lost just a hint of its control. From what you signed. Clara's face went blank. What are you talking about? She asked. Evelyn didn't answer her directly. Instead, she reached into her coat and pulled out a thin document. Recognize this? She asked, holding it out. Clara hesitated, then took it. Her eyes moved across the page. Slowly, then faster. Then they stopped. No, she whispered. I stepped closer, just enough to see the header. A financial agreement, but not a simple one. A liability contract. What is this? Clara asked, her voice trembling now. Evelyn watched her carefully. It's a co-signed investment agreement, she said. Clara shook her head. I never. You did, Evelyn said calmly. 2 years ago. Clara's breathing became uneven again. No, Daniel handled the investments. I just signed where he told me to. And there it was. Evelyn nodded slightly. Yes, she said. You did. The silence that followed was devastating. You signed into a financial structure you didn't understand. Evelyn continued. One that collapsed. Clara's hands trembled. No. And when it did, Evelyn said, the liability didn't just fall on Daniel. Clara looked up slowly. Fear fully formed now. It fell on you. The words landed like a final blow. No, Clara said. No, that's not possible. There would have been notices, warnings, something. There were, Evelyn said. Clara frus. But Daniel intercepted them, Evelyn added. My chest tightened. Because now, everything was starting to make sense. He didn't want you to know, Evelyn said. Because if you did, you would have been legally responsible. For what? Clara whispered. Evelyn held her gaze. For everything. Silence. Total. Crushing. The debt, Evelyn continued, was massive. More than he could ever repay. Clara's legs gave slightly, and she grabbed the edge of the table for support. So he made a deal, Evelyn said. My eyes narrowed. Well, Evelyn looked at me this time. He transferred what he could, she said. Liquidated everything. Moved it into a controlled account. The one in your name, I said. She nodded. And in exchange, I asked. Evelyn's expression darkened just slightly. I delayed the process, she said. Bought him time. Clara looked between us, completely lost now. Time for what? She asked. Evelyn didn't answer. To fix it, I said quietly. Evelyn glanced at me, then nodded once. But he couldn't, she added. The room went silent again. Daisy before he died, he said slowly he traveled you. Evelyn didn't deny it. And then he died, Clara whispered. A pause. A breaths. A realization forming. That wasn't a coincidence, was it? Clarask. Evelyn didn't respond immediately. And that silence was the answer. Clara staggered back. My God, felt it. That cold, creeping understanding. He ran out of time, Evelyn said quietly. The words hit harder than anything else. Now? I asked. Evelyn looked at Clara. Now, she said. The responsibility comes back. Clara's head snapped up. What does that mean? Evelyn's voice returned to its calm, controlled tone. It means, she said, the debt didn't disappear. Clara's face went completely pale. And since Daniel is gone, Evelyn continued. Her eyes locked onto Clarice. It falls to you. Silence. Absolute. No, Clara whispered. No, I can't, there's no money left. He gave it all to you. Evelyn shook her head. That's where you're wrong. Clara froze. I narrowed my eyes. What do you mean? I asked. Evelyn turned slowly, looked around the house. The walls, the space, the history, and then she smiled. The money, she said softly, was never the real asset. Clara stopped breathing because she understood. Slowly, horribly, her eyes turned toward me, then around the house. No, she whispered. I said nothing, because now the final truth had landed. Evelyn stepped toward the center of the room. This house, she said, is the last remaining piece. Clara shook her head desperately. No, it's not mine. It's hers. Evelyn smiled again. Yes, she said. A pause. A final twist. But you're the one tied to the debt. The room went silent. Because now, everything had come full circle. Clara turned toward me. Disperati. Broken. Margaret. Please, she whispered. And for the first time, she sighed it. Help me. I looked at her. Oh, carefully. The woman who tried to throw me out. Arrest me. Take everything. And now, nothing. I stepped forward slowly. Then said the words she would never forget. You gave me 30 days, I sighed calmly. A pause. A breath. A quiet, devastating smile. I only needed one. Clara broke. Andevalan. She simply watched. Because in the end, the house was never the prize. It was the trap. Did Clara deserve what happened? Or was she a victim too? Tell me in the comments, justice or revenge? Be honest. If you were Margaret, would you help Clara? Or let her face the consequences? I want to know what you would do. If you watched till the end, you already know. Not every truth sets you free. Hit like if this gave you chills. This story is just one of many hidden truths people never talk about. Like, share, and subscribe the channel for more shocking stories that keep you thinking.